I've got a story today, and it's about the payment services company Square opening a new business focused on creating an open developer platform to make it easier to provide non-custodial, decentralized financial services. This came from a series of tweets by Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey and co-founder. And I mean, as with all tweets, these were a little bit lacking in context, but this is an interesting development in the sense that it continues to show that, Square is building out all of these services. I also think it's interesting that Dorsey is still sort of like the CEO of Twitter, but I think Square is doing much more interesting stuff in a variety of ways. But David, what are your initial thoughts on this one in terms of, this is separate from Square Crypto. This is going to be kind of self-directed and funded. But what do you think this could mean? Let's get some unhealthy speculation going in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, this is super interesting and super exciting. I will say very briefly, Twitter has been on a tear lately. They're introducing a lot of features, so just in their defense. But
not fleets.
So the key takeaway, right? I mean, they're focusing on what they want to build. So the interesting thing here is that he's talking about building. What people took away from this is that he's talking about building DeFi on Bitcoin, which, there's a lot of missing pieces. We don't know a ton right now. I think the tweets are pretty much all we have, other than somebody whose name I'm forgetting has been named as CEO of the new project. I apologize. But that's the interesting part, is why do this on Bitcoin when DeFi and Ethereum is already such a huge deal? And we know Jack has been a big supporter of Lightning. So my guess would be this somehow is going to connect to Lightning by design. I just got something in my head here, but so
that was the voice of God.
Mike
that was the voice of God. Yeah. I think actually it was Jack Dorsey.
That was that helpful fairy in our ears just telling us exactly.
Okay, you're going to laugh because I thought I was being told that my mic was broken. But Mike Brock is the
broken mic is not heading up the project. Let's just be clear.
Wow, roasted.
So there we go. So that's about all the information we have. But so it's going to be DeFi on Bitcoin. It is very importantly going to be open access. And so it's true DeFi, at least according to the description. So I think it's really exciting and interesting. I will say the one shocking thing to me is that people are not seeing this as exciting as it seems to me. Bitcoin isn't making any big moves when, based on fundamentals, this kind of announcement would seem to suggest that there should be some renewed interest. So it's a bit of a bummer that that's not happening. But
yeah, I'll jump in. I think that it's really interesting that Jack Dorsey really is going all out in this decentralized direction. And it seems to be this kind of recent thing over the past year or so. And it's not just on Square, it's also on Twitter. I mean, they're experimenting with this decentralized Twitter that they're hoping to build out and allow other people to plug in. And, although that hasn't really gone anywhere, it's still something that he's talked about. And, he talks about the ability for these centralized platforms to, censor and all this. He basically said previously in a congressional hearing, I don't think we should have this power. I don't think I should have this power. I don't think you should have this power. Let's create these permissionless systems. And now he's applying this into the payments sector as well. I just think it's kind of really interesting. I wonder whether Bitcoin has kind of radicalized him to this more decentralized ethos, because it did start to become evident in his rhetoric when he really jumped on board the Bitcoin bandwagon. But Zach, I saw your hand go up, so I'll throw to you first.
I will defer to Jen. Jen, go for it, and I'll jump in after.
Okay, I'm going to be super quick. It just seems like there's announcement after announcement after announcement, and the information is so vague. I just want more information on just one project, the hardware wallets, this one, something, the Bitcoin fund in Africa with Jay-Z. And on that point, Ben, did this article say that Tidal was involved somehow? And what could that mean? Because I know Tidal as a music streaming platform, and how does that all kind of fit together?
I mean, it's gonna be weird in that regard, right? We've seen like sort of the decentralized answers of Spotify, obviously like sort of creators and artists and musicians and everything else. Like there has been a lot of play in the blockchain space in terms of getting people the money that they're actually owed rather than being done through centralized, entities. I don't exactly know how Tidal will be involved here. I cannot answer that one. I do not have that information, but that was maybe my initial thoughts in this regard. And also like how Tidal and those services might be integrated into something potentially along these lines in terms of more open source, more open, and also potentially remittances for artists. But Zach, I'm going to toss it back down to you.
Yeah, so I read this tweet and I was like, yeah, this isn't really like DeFi, like as we're thinking about it. It's like decentralized financial services, right? It's not like DeFi services. That was just my interpretation of the Jack tweet. So I would hope that's the case because I'm pretty bearish on the idea of Bitcoin supporting DeFi at present when there are far better options for doing so on other networks, be they Ethereum or some of these other competing proof of stake networks that are already up and running. So I would hope that this isn't like Maxi is going to maxi and like try to put DeFi on Bitcoin, but it's basically saying, hey, we can build services that are on top of Bitcoin that are decentralized and they're also financial services, but they're not DeFi services in the way that we're thinking about them. I know that some people are trying to build services, be it sovereign or other, but Bitcoin DeFi to me is still pretty pie in the sky. I'll kick it to you, Naomi, before we change gears. So what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, on that note, I think it's interesting to mention the fact that DeFi isn't really a thing on Bitcoin, and maybe he is trying to encourage this by creating this specifically developer platform. The whole goal is to allow people to build applications on there to provide, whether it's like an API that has a bunch of financial data that Square has access to, and they're going to find a way to make it easier for other people to plug into this in order to experiment. I think that's kind of cool because the more people who experiment in this payment services space and in this DeFi space, I think the better off we're going to be because we're just going to have lots of different options. So I think it's kind of interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what actually happens there, whether it's just going to be more announcements and less information or whether we're going to start to see things, but definitely keeping my eye on this.